and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 412. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by my very good friend and nice, still very young, viable person, Chris Saturn.
I have not been young or viable in years, so.
We'll figure out the nice intro. We'll get there. I don't know. I like young and viable. Because it doesn't say viable for what. You're viable for something. Eating, I don't know, something. You're a viable food source for starving
I am
people. I don't know.
Fit for purpose.
Yeah, fit for purpose, Chris Satter. As far as housekeeping, Guy's going to be on this episode again to make up for all of the producer segments he's missed. So stay tuned after the ending theme.
And then we're cutting him off.
And then we're cutting him off. That's it. He gets 2 minutes, and then we're cutting his mic. We have no ability to cut his mic. So stay tuned after the ending theme. Guy's going to be here again, kind of playing makeup for all of the episodes he missed. My week.
Yes, sir.
I've been playing more of the MechWarrior 5.
Neat. How is it?
It's good. It's real good. Now, I'm to understand that at launch, the game was real not good because there just wasn't enough stuff in it.
Right.
But they have continuously released stuff for it to the point that I feel like there's a moderate amount of stuff.
Oh, what are you playing it on?
Steam Deck.
Oh, okay.
PC. So I'm going back and forth between my PC. Depending on the missions, some missions I won't play on my Steam Deck because I need the mouse and keyboard. But mostly Steam Deck.
Do you have any of the DLC or add-ons or any of that stuff, or is it just the base game?
I have everything except the newest new thing because I got it all in a bundle for like $20. Whatever bundle was going on.
So I was looking at it on Game Pass, and I was wondering if just the base Game Pass version is enough, or if I have to buy it to enjoy it.
I liked the base game. So my thing is I was playing the campaign, and the campaign is very... It's kind of like XCOM, where they're going to let you go do whatever you want.
Right.
As far as I know, there's not a time limit like XCOM had.
Yeah.
But it's very much just like, you go do whatever missions you want. The main story is there if you want to pursue it. But the story gets harder. So the idea is that when the story gets a little too hard, you're like, all right, I'm going to go grind some easier missions, kind of build up my supplies, my mechs and my pilots and stuff, and then go tackle this harder stuff.
Yeah.
And my problem is I'm so bad at the game that I had hit a wall where I was breaking even constantly. And I couldn't gain any kind of a foothold to actually improve in the game world, which is, again, also an issue you can run into in XCOM, right? And so I finally went and watched some videos on the internet to be like, all right, I've been stuck in this. So a group of 4 mechs is called a lance. And my lance had been 2 medium mechs and 2 light mechs forever because that's all I could afford. And whenever you go to take a mission, you split everything up. You you get rewards, and the game goes, all right, how do you want your rewards split? And you can ask for money, salvage shares, damage coverage, or airstrike support. And you get so many points to put in all these different things, so you can max out money you get for the mission to max out the amount of money. You can max out salvage shares so that you get to salvage more stuff. You can salvage like mechs and parts and stuff from the battlefield. And I had just always been kind of evenly splitting it because, I don't know, I'm stupid. And I watched like 30 seconds of YouTube videos, and the first thing everyone says is like, well, when you need money, max out your money. When you're trying to build up your lance, just max out your shares as long as you have enough money to like pay your rent, because you have like a bill every month.
Right.
And I was like, And so I went and I maxed out my salvage shares for a couple of missions and salvaged up a bunch of new, heavier mechs, and then went and started maxing out money. Now I'm progressing again.
Nice.
And I think anyone who's not dumb would probably figure that out on their own. But obviously I am dumb.
Well, you tried.
But all this to say, I'm still very much enjoying the game. I think just... I don't know. It might be my favorite MechWarrior. I think just playability-wise it also helps that between MechWarriors 4 and 5, I've gotten invested in the BattleTech tabletop game. And what that means is going into MechWarrior, I understand what a lot of the equipment is and does.
Right.
And I also recognize a lot of the mechs by their names or on sight. So I go into the game and I see, a rifleman or a centurion or whatever, and I know what they are.
Right.
And so that helps me a lot. So it's hard for me to really gauge, but knowing the BattleTech universe has helped me greatly in my enjoyment of the game. And you would think knowing these things would make me better at the game, but it does not. But I'm still greatly enjoying it. I think it maps really well to a controller as long as you have maybe a controller with back paddles. But really the 4 shoulder buttons you can map to your firing groups 1 through 4. And I'm just having a really good time with it. I'm very much enjoying it. I'm enjoying doing the missions. I just stopped playing it stupid is what happened. Because what I wanted to do was be like, all right, these are my 4 mechs and they do everything. And these are my 4 pilots and they do everything. And everyone does everything. And I never change out my team. And that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
The game...
In a lot of games that doesn't work, to be fair.
Right. Again, like XCOM, it doesn't want you to pick the same guys every time. So it got to a point where I wouldn't take multi-mission missions where you go there and it's like, hey, it's a 2-part mission. You do one mission, then right into the other one, no time to do anything. And I just wouldn't do those because I couldn't repair my lance between missions.
Right.
And so I started doing it right. There's some missions where it's like, hey, we just want you to destroy the buildings at this base. Mm-hmm. And I've started doing those where I just pick a light mech with flamethrowers on it.
Yeah.
And I just ignore all the bad guys. I run in there, I burn everything down, and I run back out. And that has been very lucrative.
Yeah.
So I've just kind of started playing the missions as different missions instead of everything the same, which is, again, I think how non-dum-dums probably do it out of the gate. But for a dum-dum, I had to get there.
You had to warm yourself up to it.
But I'm very much enjoying the game. Having a really good time with it, really enjoying all of the different mechs. They all feel really different. Now I'm mixing stuff up. I still stay in my mech. The one I control is always the same.
Yeah.
I play a Centurion.
You identify with it now.
I identify with that mech. I think it's a Centurion, CNA9 is the variant or whatever.
Nice.
And that's what I want. I know that mech. I can play Centurion all day long.
Right.
And all my teammates get all the other shit that I get, which are way better than what I have. Until I get a really good mech that I really like a Marauder or something, then I'm going to take that. Anyway, very much enjoying it. I think for the $0 extra it would cost you to play the Game Pass version, I see no reason not to play it. Check it out. There's still instant action. Yeah. It's got co-op. If you want to co-op stuff, we can do that.
Nice.
And then the package deal of the game is on sale pretty frequently if you're just like, hey, I like this. I'm maybe going to pick up the PC version so I can use mouse and keyboard some of the time.
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking at the PC version on Game Pass.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was even on console because I hadn't bothered to look at that.
Yeah.
No, the Game Pass version. It looks like they have a bundle of the game with Mercenaries for $47, which still seems a little high, but I'm sure it'll go on sale eventually.
Yeah, I think I paid $30 for mine and all the DLC, and it was probably a winter sale or something. But I think it's very worth it. At least now, I've heard that they've done a lot of AI updates and things. I think that was a lot of the major complaints was the AI was kind of jank when it started. People complained about their lance mates not having great AI, but honestly, I've gotten so in the habit of giving them constant commands that I wouldn't notice their AI anyway, because I'm always telling them exactly where to do and what to go. Because what I like to do is I just go stand on a hill and I order them around and fire long-range missiles.
Right.
And that's just what I do. I just stand there and I'm like, hello, it's me. I'm not going to go anywhere near you guys because I'm so bad at the game that if I get in close combat, I get wrecked. I cannot do the close combat. I need to stand back. I've loaded my Centurion up with LRMs, which is not a good mech platform to load up with LRMs. I should be playing a catapult or something. But that's what I do. And then, but they've added stuff. They've added like melee weapons and attacks for some of the expansions. Like I bought a sword, so I'm just gonna give one of my guys a sword, and he's gonna go up there and cut people in half. I don't know.
Nice.
But it's really fun. I'm really greatly enjoying it, and it's if you just want to play it arcade style, it still has instant action. You just boot it up, you crank the difficulty all the way down, you pick what environment and mission you want, and pick any mech you want, and just jump in.
Nice.
And play it arcade style. It still has that. It has co-op campaign. I don't know what that's like, but I'm curious to check it out. So if you pick it up, let me know.
Right.
And we'll co-op some campaign.
Right.
I also was laying in bed the other night, and I was like, man, I got to bed 20 minutes early because I'm trying to get my sleep back on track. And I was like, okay, I got 20 minutes. I want to play games. I want to play a game on my Steam Deck for 20 minutes. What's good? We're doing Half Minute Hero this week. That's a great game. So I'm going to boot up Final Fantasy VI. And I was right in the middle of, I was at the section where you get to Thamasa, the Magic Village. Yeah.
I always called it Tamaza.
Huh. Isn't it TH?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, yeah. So, yeah, I was there, and I just ended up staying up way too late playing Final Fantasy VI because apparently I'm like halfway through the damn game and I don't remember playing that much of it last time.
That's nearly the halfway point, yeah.
And then apparently I was also, you know what? I do remember now because I was playing and I was like, how come Terra is level infinity and Locke is level like 10?
Oh, you used the river trick.
Yes. And I was sitting there and I had a vague memory of putting like a rubber band on my 8-bit arcade stick and running the river grind overnight.
Yep, that'll do it.
And then I was like, oh, this is... And then, of course, Strago got added in my party, and he was appropriate level.
Yeah, he was
poor
near
Locke,
infinity, but Locke is not.
Poor Locke is just stuck being a piece of shit.
After the halfway point in the game, it tries to equalize people's levels, which means that everybody else doesn't get affected, and Locke gets almost brought up to halfway where everybody else is.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, still enjoying the Pixel remaster. Thankfully, the version on my Steam Deck already had all of my hacks installed.
Nice.
Because I have the hack to fix the font, but I also have...
Pixel remaster.
Yeah, I'm on the Pixel remaster. I also have the palette and the sprites set to the kind of original Super Nintendo.
Oh, that's right. I remember you mentioning all that.
Yeah, because the palette on the Pixel remasters is it's a lot brighter.
Yeah.
And so, because I'd put in the Super Nintendo sprites because I don't like the newer sprites.
Right.
And when I did that, they looked really dark on these like neon backgrounds. So I've got it all toned down. And apparently I set it all up on my Steam Deck and then just like was like, all right, I'm just going to be done. And so I've kind of half picked that back up.
Yeah,
been playing that.
The art style, they tried to make it look like the rest of the Pixel remasters rather than looking like Final Fantasy VI. So it did end up being brighter.
Yeah. Anyway, what have you been up to?
I've speaking of the Pixel remasters, I had finished Final Fantasy II when we were recording a couple weeks ago. And so I moved on to Final Fantasy V because I'm working through the 6 of them in the reverse order of how I enjoy them.
I'm sorry. You've played through these games so many times that you're having to come up with these bizarre qualifiers for the order you're going to play them in.
Look.
In reverse enjoyment order?
Yes, look, I'm saving the best for last, is what I'm saying. That way I enjoy it more the more I go on. And
I mean, the best already is the last, even if you go in chronological order. So,
kind of. So the thing is that I'm reassessing whether I like 2 or 5 more. That's what's happening here.
Oh, no.
Because I love the job system in 5. I love it. I love that part of the game.
And Ferris.
I don't know that I like anything else in the game.
Oh, no. I like Ferris a lot.
I don't dislike any of the characters. I just think they have almost no personality.
All right, look. Okay. In my head... 5 is the sequel to 3.
Okay.
Now, saying that 5 is the sequel to 4, definitely it is a downgrade in story quality and character quality. Because 4 has great characters.
Right.
Fun story. I don't know if I'd call the story great, but it's fun. It's interesting. The characters are interesting. I guess in my head, like, 5 is the sequel to 3. And when I view it that way, I see the direct lineage... And I guess that's how I justify my enjoyment of it, I guess.
For me, it had always... This goes way back to when the fan translation first came out in the late 90s. It was always alluded to as the gem that we didn't get. It was the secret best Final Fantasy game. It was always Japan's favorite at the time.
Oh, it's not that.
At the time, it was regularly at the top of Japanese charts. Like
really?
Fan charts would say, oh, it's better than 7, it's better than 6, it's better than all the rest of the series. 5 is the peak. And Sakaguchi also always said it was his favorite. It was his favorite that he had worked on.
Oof.
And so it was this game that we never got to play because it wasn't in my language. And it was finally translated, and I was like, this is the secret gem, and it completes the Super NES trilogy, and the other 2 Super NES games are my favorites, so clearly this one's going to be amazing. Mm-hmm. And I went into it with that mindset, and it never quite hit that. It's a good game. I'm not going to knock it. For people who love Final Fantasy V, I'm sorry. I'm about to shit on it. But
I do not forgive you.
Yeah, it's all right. I don't care.
Now, hold on. You went into this game thinking it's going to be this hidden gem, knowing that the main character is named Butts.
Look, I love the name Butts. First, and even on the Pixel Remaster, I rename him to Butts immediately.
There are strong indicators of the kind of experience you're in for when the main character's name is Butts.
And I think that the characterization that you get in 4 and 6 versus 5 really makes 5 feel like somewhat of a dip as far as storytelling, but also graphically it feels like a dip from 4 because the character, like whenever you die in battle, you instantly revert back into your no job class mode and then fall on the ground. And the way that it animates that looks so janky and arcadey that sometimes some of the graphics in the game feel more NES Final Fantasy than they do Super NES Final Fantasy. Mm-hmm. And I guess it makes sense because they had like barely a year between 4 and 5. So I'm sure that they were just desperate to pump out anything they could with this complex job system in it. But it always felt like a bit of a step back from 3 from 3, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
But it's still a fine game. I still like it more than I like 8 or 10, but I don't love it.
I don't disagree with anything you've said.
Uh-huh.
But none of it mechanically 5 is peak for me. The job system as represented in 5 and the way that 5 actually gives you the freedom to really choose whatever job you want, whereas 3 really tried to funnel you into some jobs.
That's true. There were some times that did that.
Mechanically, 5 is my favorite of the initial 6 games by a wide margin.
I do really like the job system. That's my favorite part of it. And I think all the jobs are unique enough to make them interesting. It is pretty easy to break the system. If you max out everything, you can be super broken.
But also
in your favor.
There's a shitload of game there too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for someone like me where like good story is great. I love having it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't show up for that. You know, like if you got it, cool. And 5's story mostly just kind of gets out of your way.
Yeah. That's my problem.
Yeah, like the story that's there, I don't think any of the story that's there is bad. I can't think of any story beats in 5 that are really...
I would disagree. So spoiler for a nearly 30-year-old game. Actually, no, it's more than 30-year-old game. Spoiler for a 30-year-old game here. But there is a scene where you think that you have killed the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And then a few minutes later... a few minutes of gameplay, like 2 hours of gameplay, I guess, later, he shows back up and informs you that he turned himself into a splinter and lodged himself in a little girl's finger.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And now he's alive again because magic.
So when are you going to talk about the bad story part? Because I'm ready to defend that. So far, it's only been awesome, hilarious story beats.
I just dislike X-Death as a character. I'd just like to say I don't like him. He does not get my sympathy or my hatred. He is a bland villain. And also, his backstory, that he was a tree that everybody dumped all the evil into, and then he came to life and wanted to do evil, is the dumbest backstory.
Uh-huh.
And like I don't like all the villains in 4 or in the NES games, but I like them all more than I like X-Death. I like a likable villain. I like a villain that either I can sympathize with or that I can hate. And I feel no emotion towards X-Death. I just think he's really dumb.
I guess I straight up don't go into 3 or 5 giving any kind of shit about the story. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, the story in 6 is awesome. The story in 4 is awesome.
Right.
One, I think the first game, like, for its time, the fact that it had any kind of a twist was innovative, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a good story. You know, it's like, for the time, it's interesting. I'd give it that.
But fortunately, they remade it in Stranger of Paradise.
Oh boy. But Saturn, did they add swear words and cell phones?
Oh, you have no idea.
Oh boy.
But no, all this to say that Final Fantasy V is still a fine game. I did just finish it the other day. But it's just not my favorite of those early games. Also, I played Signalis, and I'm still playing it. I'm not done with it. And it's good. It's creepy. It's what I wanted. Have you heard anything about it?
Someone asked about it, and they're like, "Hey, are y'all playing this?" And I went and I looked up on Steam, and the category was like horror, and I was like, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah,
and
it's basically a horror game that tries to throw back to the PS1 era of horror games, but with slightly more modern controls. Mm-hmm. But it has like this almost pixelated graphics, but it's clearly polygons, but like the texture models on them make them look like they're like late 16-bit, early 32-bit pixelated graphics, which is neat. Okay. It's a neat art style. All the cutscenes are done in pixel art, but like really high res.
I've seen a good amount of like low poly weird horror games.
Yeah.
On like Itch and stuff.
Mm-hmm. But this one's really good quality. Really impressive. The sound design is excellent on it. I'm really enjoying it so far. It does seem to reference a lot of other games that I like. Like I've noticed several references to Silent Hill, both in like mechanics and cinematography and stuff like that. And then also some of the dialogue seems to be referencing the Nier franchise and just all kinds of little references to other games in there that I'm appreciating. But it is neat. It is a fun game. I'm liking it. If you like horror, you should try it. If you don't like horror, you shouldn't. You shouldn't play this one.
I wish I could. It's not that I don't like horror.
Yeah.
That's like saying that like someone scared of heights doesn't like heights.
Right.
I don't know that they do or don't like it. It terrifies them.
Right.
And that's my problem. I wish I could like horror.
Yeah.
I wish I could do it.
I love horror. It's my favorite. I there are some times when it gets too tense and I'm like, I can't do this when no one else is home. But now I have a cat. And so anytime it gets too tense, I can just look at the cat and be like, why did you do this? And then she makes a cat noise and then everything's better.
Well, there you go. Yeah. There you go, Saturn.
You just have to blame your cat is what I'm saying, Justin.
Let's do the news. Mm-hmm. Sega announces big layoffs at Relic, which sucks. I guess it's not too shocking. Company of Heroes 3 came out, and apparently people fucking hated it.
Oh, yeah?
I'm a huge COH fan, and I didn't play it because the reviews were so negative.
That's unfortunate.
That my first thought was, well, I'll wait till it's on sale in a month then. Right. So it is unfortunate. Relic seems to have as many hits as they do big misses. Relic is also the Dawn of War people, and anyone that was a Dawn of War fan remembers that the first 2 games were extremely celebrated, and the third one was so hated that they abandoned it. You know how strategy games are. They come out and you just expect the DLC.
Yeah.
The first 2 Dawn of War games had tons of DLC and full-size expansions. Right. I think the first one had 3 or 4 expansions. The second one had 2 big expansions and a ton of DLC. Mm-hmm. And the third one has nothing.
Oof.
It came out and people hated it so much that they just were like, no, bye. And so that was a huge miss for them. And then Company Heroes 1 and 2, both very enjoyable games. People liked them. And then Company Heroes 3 came out, and it was very anticipated, and it just has fallen flat.
You know, it's a stinker of a game when it releases and the old games see a higher spike in sales than the current game.
Yeah. And we were talking about this in the chat. It's kind of a problem in strategy games that the sort of business model for strategy games is, hey, we release our strategy game, and then we keep coming out with expansions and DLC content and new maps and new modes and new factions. And then when you release the numbered sequel, obviously you've been
back to the beginning.
Yeah, you've been steadily releasing content for this game, and now you're going to release the next one, and it's really kind of going to be the same sort of strategy game with now less units, less maps, less factions, less content, less campaigns.
Yeah, it's the problem I always have when a new Civ launches.
And they fixed it, like Dawn of War 1 to 2, they fixed it by dramatically changing how the game plays. The first Dawn of War is a straight-up, full-scale, real-time strategy game. The second one scales everything down so that you're controlling small squads instead of building these big bases. Like, it was a smart way to do it. So Relic knows how to do it smart. And,
well, maybe those people had already left. Because it sounds like their more recent games are the ones that are kind of falling.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate to see a company or a company I like as much as Relic, who has released some of my favorite games of all time, going through this. So that sucks. Yeah. Castlevania the Arcade has been preserved and is now emulatable.
And it's nice that it's preserved.
Yeah,
but it's still Castlevania the Arcade.
The machine looks really cool.
Oh yeah, have you
looks
seen?
Awesome.
Have you seen the Silent Hill the arcade machine that they released around the same time?
No, it sounds scary to look at, so I probably avoided it.
It's a goofy looking machine. It looks like a haunted house machine. But man, is it a bad game? It is a first person shooter light gun game in Silent Hill, and this Castlevania game. I don't remember if it was also a light gun game, but I just remember that it got lambasted when it came out.
Yeah. Sony had a not E3 showcase.
Yes, so
that was
announcements.
It's exciting. First up, Metal Gear Solid Triangle Snake Eater.
Delta. Metal Gear Solid Delta.
That's a triangle. I'm looking right at it.
Yeah, it's pronounced Delta. That's what a Delta sign is.
I know how to pronounce a triangle. I've been drawing them for years. That's a triangle.
It's a Greek letter Delta.
Sure. Okay. We're all, if you say so. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater and MGS Master Collection Volume 1 has been announced for PS5, Xbox, and PC.
Yep.
Metal Gear Solid Triangle 2 feature original voice cast. I've decided I'm just going to never call it Delta again. I'm very excited for this. Metal Gear Solid 3 is probably my second favorite Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
And so I'm very stoked on it. I very much like the game.
Did you see the teaser trailer?
No, I didn't watch anything.
Graphically, it looks really nice. They showed nothing that looks like anything like gameplay.
I'm just going to wait. I cannot wait
wait the 3 years to play it.
Can't wait to re-experience the secondhand embarrassment as Revolver Ocelot introduces himself as the cringiest doofus in the world. I love how dumb they made him in 3. So dumb.
I do appreciate they got back the original voice cast. That means that Kiefer Snake is trapped in MGS5.
Yeah.
So that David Hayter can come back. Now, I did notice that the MGS Master Collection, which is the first 3 games, is listed as Volume 1. That's exciting. That means there could be a Volume 2, and I expect it to be Portable Ops, Acid, and... Portable Ops 2? Was there a second Portable Ops?
Not 4. There's Peace Walker.
Peace Walker, that's it. Portable Ops, Acid, and Peace Walker.
There's also Acid. There's Acid 1 and 2, and then Peace Walker and Portable Ops.
Right. Okay, so it'll be Peace Walker, Portable Ops, and Acid 2, and that's it.
The Master Collection is not very exciting. These are all games that have been collected many, many times before.
But it is nice for MGS1 to be on modern consoles again. It's been a long time since that one's been playable on modern consoles.
Yeah, it got pulled off of GOG. It was on GOG, wasn't it?
It's still on GOG, isn't it?
I thought it got pulled.
No, MGS2 got pulled, but I think
okay.
I think it got relisted eventually.
Yeah. Also, Bungie announces a remake/reboot of Marathon for multiple platforms, which is exciting for people that don't know. Bungie made Marathon before they made Halo.
Yep.
So this is really exciting. I've never played the original Marathon games. People assure me that for their time they were very good first-person shooters. So I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, I was glad to see that this is releasing on multiple platforms. I was worried it was going to be a PS5 exclusive, but it is not.
Yeah.
So that is good news.
And then Sony announces a streaming-only handheld known as Project Q.
And it looks like somebody broke a DualSense controller in 2 and then glued an Android tablet in the middle.
So I didn't watch this showcase because I don't have a PS5, and I was at my daughter's end of school party thing during it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got home, I see in all my feeds this dumb looking controller thing. I thought it was a prank. I legitimately thought someone put a prank, and then I saw like a Nintendo news site was like, Sony announces Splatoon and the Wii U. And I was like, what did Sony do that everyone's making fun of them so hard for? What I thought was they made some other announcement. Someone did this mock-up, and then the media latched on because they're like, haha, Sony's so dumb. No, this is a real fucking device.
Real device, yeah. And when they're mocking Splatoon, it's because Square Enix announced a game for PS4 and PS5 called Foam Stars.
Oh, I looked at it. It is Splatoon.
It is Splatoon, but with
literally
foam
Splatoon
instead of ink. And anime people instead of squid people.
So this handheld is butt ugly.
Uh-huh.
It is terrible looking.
Yes.
It looks bad.
I'd made some comment about it looking like what George Clooney Batman would use to track Calendar Man in his Mercedes Batmobile.
It looks dumb. I mean, it literally is. If you've not seen a picture of it, imagine in your head. Imagine with me. A DualSense controller split down the middle.
Yep.
And stuck on either side of a rectangle. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's the whole device.
Yeah.
It looks really stupid. For me, it's all about price point. Like if this is literally, but then here's the thing: if it's streaming only, is it going to stream locally your PS5 to this handheld?
Yeah,
that is what it's going to do.
It streams your PS5 locally or over the internet, but it has to be connected to a PS5.
So it's going to do the same thing that the Vita did to the PS4.
Correct. And the rumor is that it's going to be $300 American.
What I was about to say was, that sounds like a really cool companion device for like $100, $150. Like, yeah, play your PS5 in bed. That's awesome.
$300
for $300.
Just a rumor. It could end up being less. However, Sony did just release that new PS5 controller for $200 or whatever it is. So I don't know.
If it's $300, then you would be stupid to buy that instead of an OLED Switch. Yeah. I'm just gonna put that out there. Oh my god!
Honestly, if you already have a PS5 and are considering that for $300, get a Series S. That way, you can play any games that are not on PS5.
Yeah, like I don't know, man. Can't the PS5 stream to a PC locally?
Yes, that is correct.
So buy a Steam Deck or buy the new ROG Ally that has Windows on it.
It can also stream to a phone remotely, and they just teamed up with Backbone to release the DualSense mobile controller for Android, which is literally a DualSense controller that snaps into your Android phone to turn it into this device. Only is $50.
Then what the fuck is this for?
I don't know.
What is it for, Sony? Why?
I don't know.
Why are you doing? Make it useful to someone.
My guess is eventually they are wanting to launch a cloud service like xCloud, and that this will be for that. But guys, you need to announce that before you announce this.
It just seems like what the fuck. So
maybe they'll surprise
doing?
us and say, "Oh, it's actually going to be $80 or something."
Like if it was, I think $100. If it's like $100. You know, you don't really have any other way to stream it. You don't own a PC. You don't have an Android phone. You don't have an iPhone, a tablet. You live in a cave, and all you have is a PS5, and you want to play it in your bed.
Yeah.
Then for $100, I could see that. That has utility.
For years, you've just been playing PS5 by looking at the shadows on the wall of your cave. just the reflection of Kratos. Finally,
with the Project Q.
I want to know what the final name is going to be, because Project Q is also a stupid name.
I'm sorry, you think it's not going to be called the Project Q? I bet you it does.
Oh God.
I've not been this flabbergasted by Sony since the PSP Go. I have to say.
What if they call it Vita Q?
Oh, then I would riot in the streets. I would get me a jug of riot juice, get out in the streets, and get buck wild in front of Sony headquarters.
What is riot juice made out of?
grain alcohol.
Okay, good.
And blue Gatorade.
Can we get that guy from the old Crash Bandicoot commercial that was outside Nintendo with the bullhorn? Can we get him to show up with us?
Yeah, just, what the fuck are you doing?
Look what you did to me.
We're going long on time on the news. There's just so much stupid news. Konami announces new TMNT quarter arcades, which are tiny replica machines that come with a little NES-style controller and teeny tiny controls. It's so cute.
Yeah.
They're exactly like the ones that I see in Walmart. They look just like those ones, and those ones in Walmart cost about $10 to $15 each.
Oh, some of them are $50.
And there are some that have a bunch of games on them. They're a little more expensive. These are $300.
And apparently they're made by a company called Quarter Arcades, who's been doing this for a little while.
Yes.
And they're all grossly overpriced. And I get that they are meticulously crafted and they're high quality, and I get all that, but that's too many money for this.
It's for that much money you could get a Project Q and play your PS5 in your cave. Who's gonna do this?
You get a Series S for $300 and then buy those TMNT games and everything else you want to play.
Yeah, in the TMNT Cowabunga collection.
Right.
I'm blown away that these game companies think we have all this money. What economy are they living in? Where the fuck are they?
What if you could use your Project Q to remotely play your tiny arcade machine?
It would still be less useful than a phone. Homebrew port of Mega Man 4 released for Genesis. That's pretty sweet.
Looks really neat. It's and it's eventually going to be a collection of 4, 5, and 6, much like the Wily Wars collection. And when I first saw it, I thought it was just a ROM hack of the Wily Wars, but no, it's being programmed from the ground up in C for the Genesis, and it looks like a really great port. I am greatly looking forward to future progress on it.
Embracer Group's stock fell nearly in half after they announced that a previous $2 billion deal had been canceled.
Yeah.
You done fucked up.
Right? That's a misstep.
McDonald's China announces a Tetris-like toy shaped like a Chicken McNugget, which means I got to go on eBay and get me one of these. Anybody in China want to send me a Tetris Chicken McNugget, please?
It's shaped like the boot for fans of the Chicken McNuggets.
Yep. I don't know that anyone is not a fan of the Chicken McNuggets.
I was not made aware until recently that the McNuggets have names.
There's 4 shapes.
Yeah, I was not aware of that until I just thought they were random shapes. They just like randomly shaped some chicken meat and they're like, here it is. But no, they are uniform 4 shapes and they have names, and that blew my fucking mind.
Marvelous announces Rune Factory 6 and Rune Factory Project Dragon. I know Rune Factory 5 wasn't super well received, but I'm glad to see Rune Factory carrying on because they're fun games.
And if you didn't see the announcement, Rune Factory 6 is going to be Western themed, and Rune Factory Project Dragon will be Eastern themed.
Oh, I like that. And then finally, Super Mario Advance, Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario World, and Super Mario Advance 3 Yoshi's Island are all still terribly named games that have been released on Nintendo Switch Online Plus, which is also terribly named. What's going on?
But none of those are as terribly named as Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3.
I think you're supposed to add the numbers and just call it 7. I don't know how it works.
It's Mario 7.
And speaking of weird, stupid things... That brings us to our topic at hand this week, which is weird Game Boy peripherals.
Justin, are any of these peripherals so that you can remotely play your Game Boy?
Oh, if only, Saturn. If only.
Get a Game Boy Project Q in here.
Yeah, it's the Project Q that you connect to your Super Nintendo when you're playing Super Game Boy, so you can play Game Boy games on the go.
I did plug my Super Game Boy into my Retro Duo portable time.
I love it. Anytime someone gets one of those on Reddit, they post a picture of them playing a Super Game Boy, playing a Game Boy game with a caption that's like, finally. Pokemon on the go. So this is in the spirit of that stupidity.
Yeah.
As far as initial thoughts, I wanted to do that. This was my idea. This is my episode idea. And I just had so much stupid crap for my Game Boys. Just like lights and magnifiers were the most common, but there was a ton of just shitty, weird accessories for the Game Boy released. And I just kind of want to talk broadly about them all because, God, they're dumb. And it's actually, there's a lot of them that are just lost to time.
Yeah.
The same way a lot of the stupider Wii peripherals and plastic junk they released for the Wii that piled up in the back of every GameStop.
And shitty third-party peripherals for the NES and other consoles over time.
It's all kind of lost, but the Game Boy in particular, there was so much in so many markets that I had a legitimate hard time finding details on a lot of this stuff. And a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't find any information anywhere about it.
I did not buy dumb peripherals for my Game Boy. I was a very vanilla Game Boy person. Like sometimes I would get the AC adapter. That was as close as I would get to a peripheral for my Game Boy. Otherwise, it was all complete vanilla virgin Game Boy, no accessories.
Yeah. And Saturn, you put in a big section entitled "Why Though?"
Yeah.
And I think it's an important thing to go through because the Game Boy, even when it came out, was dated for 1989. Was it 89 or 90 when it came out? 89? It was dated hardware then.
Because the Lynx was right around the corner if it hadn't already come out. So the Game Boy was already old tech.
And the Game Boy has, every device in the Game Boy line has been old tech. I mean, really all of them were dated by the time they came out.
True, yeah.
And so it's important to remember that and maybe kind of look at some of the limitations of the Game Boy and frame as to why so many people wanted to fix these problems with the Game Boy.
Voltron their Game Boy.
Yeah, it's because everyone that ever used a Game Boy, even if you got it on the first day, you were going, I don't know, I mean, it's great, I love it, but it feels kind of dated compared to every other device on the electronics market.
Yeah.
So do you want to quickly step us through some of the limitations that the various Game Boys had?
Yeah, so this is just in brief, some of the reasons why people might have wanted to buy extra shit for their Game Boy. So the original model Game Boy from '89, it did support stereo sound, but it only had a single speaker. So you had to have headphones if you wanted to listen to it in stereo.
And I think the very original box came with a set of like shitty 80s earbuds, didn't it?
I don't know because I never had an original Game Boy new. I got mine used.
I want to say like the very first version of it came. You know those shitty 80s earbuds that are just like orbs and one's red and one's blue and they go in your ears? I think it came with a set of those.
I don't remember ever getting earbuds until the mid 90s. Before that, everybody I knew had headphones, but they were the tiny headphones that came with Walkmans.
Yes.
They didn't go in your ear. They were on top of your ear, but they were teeny tiny and they broke real easily. That was the headphones I remember. I don't remember seeing earbuds until the mid to late 90s, but they may have had something like it.
Yeah.
But outside of sound, it did have a contrast dial for you to adjust the brightness or darkness of the screen. And as your batteries started to die, your contrast would automatically get lighter for you until the point where it was barely visible right at the end.
Yeah.
There was also the grip of the Game Boy. Some people don't like the brick form factor. I never had an issue with it on the original model anyway. But I do understand some people had issues with that. The screen could also be considered too small for some people, especially considering the screen was pretty small on the original model. People think of it as a larger device, but there was a giant bezel around that
and
screen.
the pocket screen was way bigger.
The pocket screen is identical in size.
Is it? No way.
It's within a couple of millimeters. I looked it up before we did.
In my head, I'm always like, the pocket screen is so much bigger. I guess it's an optical illusion because it's
just
tiny.
Because it has like no bezel comparatively.
Oh my god, my mind is blown. My whole life I've been like, well, the pocket's got the bigger screen. Holy shit.
That's what I thought too. But it's within a millimeter of the original Game Boy screen, if I remember reading it right. But it's very, very close.
Maybe it's just that I can see it.
Right. Yeah, that helps.
So another thing to keep in mind is that there was no indicator that your battery was low except for the contrast.
Well, there was the red battery light.
Right, but you had to get kind of good at telling when it was fading because if you were playing it a lot, you get accustomed to what it looks like.
Right.
And then it's like you almost forget, and then it dies, and you replace the batteries, and you're like, holy shit, that thing is that bright?
Right.
Like you would forget every fucking time.
Yeah. And speaking of the batteries, they lasted longer than on the Game Gear, which isn't saying a lot. But if you weren't noticing the batteries running out,
and because the contrast dial, when the contrast started to fade, you would just crank it up. By the end of the battery, you'd have it all the way at the top.
Right. And then it just dies. And so, there were good reasons to have accessories for the original Game Boy. And then
all right. The Pocket.
The Pocket. So it did have a different form factor. So if you had special grips or special magnifiers or special lights,
work.
Those didn't fit anymore because it's different, which makes sense. It is a smaller unit. It's going to be smaller, but still. They didn't need to change the link port.
No.
But they did. Yep. So if you wanted to link to other Game Boys, you had to get a different link cable or a link cable adapter in order to use link functionality with original Game Boys.
Yeah, and this whole deprecating all existing accessories is a feature of every successive Game Boy.
And also, if you had the very first model Game Boy Pocket, there was no battery indicator.
Yeah, and I have two, one with a battery indicator and one without one, right. Or a power indicator, I guess we should say. And yeah, the one without it, you'll just be playing and be like, oh shit.
Yeah,
it has gone dead.
Yeah, and if I remember right, it's been a while since I played on a Game Boy Pocket. The screen didn't die as much contrast-wise as on the original model, so there was less indication. It doesn't seem to. Yeah,
it doesn't seem to. My Pocket was my main Game Boy. I loved my Pocket. Well, I guess I might have played more color, but it didn't seem like it. I think the screen was just clearer to begin with, so you didn't notice it maybe as much.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And then we got the Game Boy Color. Which came out in 99, so a few years after the Pocket.
Yeah.
And it is a smaller screen than either the original or the Pocket.
Which deprecates a lot of magnifying devices.
And, of course, it's a different form. Again, so...
Had a big hump in the back.
Yeah, all those grips that you might have had no longer attach. All those magnifiers no longer attach. It did use the same link port as the Pocket, so that's something.
Yeah.
But it was in a different location. So if you had one of those goofy lights that plugged into the link port, it might not cover your screen anymore.
Right.
And also because it was a color screen, they got rid of the contrast dial because of the color screen, which, one, meant that you couldn't see it in poor light, and two, once again took away any indication that you had that the battery was going down, except for the battery light, which I believe on the color illuminates when it's low, if I remember right.
Oh, I don't know.
It's been a long time.
It's been too long since I've played a color for that long, because ever since the Game Boy Advance came out, especially the SP, right. Why would I play on a color? Exactly, the screen is fucking tiny and you can't see it.
And it's not a good screen.
No, it's not. And to be and let's put this in context. The Neo Geo Pocket Color has a dramatically more reflective color, non-backlit screen that looks infinitely better. It's not like there were not good non-backlit color screens in that era. There were. SNK was using them.
Yeah, Nintendo just cheaped out on it.
Let's fire through the Game Boy Advance line real quick and then get into the peripherals.
And some people forget sometimes the Game Boy Advance came out less than 2 years after the Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
This was a quick turnaround. And it's a drastically different form factor because it's the flat system instead of the tall system. And it also still only has a single speaker. They've yet to put a second speaker in any Game Boy. The screen was even harder to see than the Game Boy Color because it was a super shitty screen on that first model GBA.
Yep.
And it used a new link cable because why not? So you can play with the old link cable if you're playing against somebody on a Game Boy Color or you're playing a Game Boy Color game. But if you want to play a Game Boy Advance game multiplayer, you have to get the new link cable. And of course, none of your grips or magnifiers or lights will work because everything's in a different location. And then you have the SP, which is yet another new form factor, but at least the screen is backlit, so you don't necessarily need that worm light anymore.
The AGS 101 GBA SP, I think, is kind of the ultimate form of the Game Boy.
Yeah.
It doesn't need screen protection because it's a clamshell.
Right.
It's that kind of nice vertical orientation.
Yep.
It has a backlit screen with 3 different brightness settings, one of them being off.
Right.
It's rechargeable battery. But they don't have a fucking headphone jack on it.
True, you have to get an adapter because the headphones plug into the power connection for some reason.
Yeah, so if you want to charge and listen to headphones at the same time,
you have to get a different adapter.
A different adapter. And it's like you finally fucking did it. You finally fucking figured it out, and you're like, let's take the headphone jack out. And everyone was like, well, it's so tiny and compact. And then they released the fucking Game Boy Micro, and guess what it has, Saturn? The goddamn thing is 3 inches wide, and it has a fucking headphone jack.
Yeah, but
don't tell me you couldn't fit it.
But you know what it doesn't have? Game Boy Color functionality. Because they took away the chip that lets it run Game Boy Color games to make room for the headphone jack.
Jesus Christ.
And it also uses a completely different link cable
and a different power cable.
Yep.
The Micro has its own that is different from even the DS, which was out at the time, even though it looks like the DS power cable.
Yeah, but it's slightly different.
It's... So you can see why we would want all these dumb peripherals.
For your Micro, you can get some new faceplates, too.
Don't remind me. Let's talk peripherals, which is what we're here to talk about right at the end of the episode. I want to talk first about the Game Boy camera and printer.
Yeah, which were weird.
They were weird because in these we have these categories. This category is just peripherals. The next one is weird peripherals. Then we have really weird peripherals, and then we have completely dumb peripherals. Yeah. And I feel like I have to mention the Game Boy camera and printer because these came out in 1998.
Yeah.
And it was weird.
Yeah.
And it has become a relatively celebrated peripheral, but it was a strange thing to release in 1998. And it might seem kind of normal now, but at the time, adding a camera to something that you carried around in your pocket, people were like, why? Why do I want a camera on my Game Boy?
At the time, we were like, well, we'll just go buy a disposable Kodak camera from the drugstore.
And there's a lot of question about exactly what you're supposed to do with a device that takes extremely poor quality pictures in exclusively black and white.
Well, Justin, I'll tell you, you print stickers with it.
And even more baffling was the fact that there really wasn't much of a game at all. There were a few mini games included, but they're pretty much Game & Watch style games.
Right.
They're barely games.
Yeah.
And then they come out with the printer, and you're like, aha, here's what we do. This is what you do with all of these.
Yeah.
But the printer prints them in black and white on thermal paper stickers.
Right.
And the printer takes 6 AA batteries.
But they sold a power adapter for it.
And you'll remember the Game Boy Pocket, which is what the camera was really kind of marketed for.
Right.
It took AAA batteries. Yep. So between your Game Boy camera, Pocket, and printer, you had 8 batteries of 2 different sizes.
Yeah.
It was just kind of...
Or you carry around power adapters and just plug in all the time.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love the Game Boy camera and the Game Boy printer. I use them obsessively. But I did want to point out that let's not forget that even some of the celebrated peripherals for the Game Boy were kind of weird.
Yeah, they were kind of
There was some weird shit going on.
I mean, there was also some, like, less weird stuff, like AC adapters.
True. Absolutely there were. There were plenty of non-weird accessories, but even a lot of the official ones, and there are weirder official ones we will talk about, were kind of strange. It's stuff like, you're adding all this technology to this Game Boy, but it's still not backlit in America. Yeah, you came out with the Game Boy Light in Japan, but where's the American version?
Right, yeah.
Put a light in it. I don't want a printer for my Game Boy. I want to see it.
If you want to see it, you play it on your Super Nintendo, Justin.
Oh my God. The Game Boy camera on the Super Nintendo is so dumb. What I do want to talk about is the Gamester Game Changer. Saturn, you gave me this.
Yeah, the GBA Game Changer.
We both laughed at this dumb piece of shit. It's this wart that connects to the bottom of your GBA and lets you plug in 3 different games, and you have a switch to toggle between them.
Yeah, and it only works on the SP.
Yes, and you know what? I fucking love it. I unironically use it on my SP anytime I'm using my SP.
Yeah.
Because in addition to having more games available, it also adds a nice grip. It adds a nice grip to my GBA SP, and it makes it look really stupid and makes it fit in no pockets ever.
I'm glad it is finding some use. This was something that I was working at EB, and somebody brought this into trade, and none of us could agree on what device to mark in the system when we traded it in.
Yeah.
And so we just made up some generic Game Boy accessory and we ended up giving the guy like 8 cents for it. And he was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after he left, it printed up the price ticker for it because it doesn't tell us how much we're going to sell it for until after they leave.
Yeah.
It prints up at like $16.99 or something. And my boss was like, no, we're not doing that. That's obscene. And he just voids the 8 cents from the prior transaction. He's like, I'm throwing this in the trash. And I was like, I'm going to take it home.
Yeah.
So that's how I got it.
Many years later, I'm using the Gamester Game Changer. Let's get into the weird shit.
Yeah.
And I say weird shit. I don't want people to think that this was unpopular shit.
Right. Yeah. Oh, no.
Because
a lot of stuff was very popular.
This was fucking popular. The Handy Boy.
But before we do that, I do want to talk about one that was obscenely popular that I've always thought was weird and dumb and useless. And that's the Worm Light.
Okay. All right.
Because first of all,
we're going to have a fight here. It works fine. I can see my Game Boy Color, Saturn.
Yeah, it works great if you want a giant reflection of a light on your entire screen.
No, okay.
So you can't see
trick to the Worm Light
is you throw it in the trash.
Is positioning it in a booklight position above your screen so that it provides just enough light to see it, but does not give you a big glare in the middle of your screen. There was an art to using the Worm Light on a Game Boy Color.
So again, the Worm Light is trash, but they were like $12. So parents kept buying them for some reason.
Oh yeah,
kids
crazy popular.
Because they didn't work. And so we just had so many used Worm Lights just like in a giant like bag hanging in our Game Boy section. And people would be like, can I buy one of those? And it would cost like $1 less than a new one. So they never did. So we just kept collecting used Worm Lights until like that shelf broke because there were too many Worm Lights hanging from it. They're useless. I hate them. They're
so I went through a few Worm Lights. I had one that was good. And then I had like one that was the bad Worm Light.
You found the one.
So I think the one that was good was either Pelican or Nyko.
And Nyko was the official Worm Light brand.
Yeah, it was one of those two. I want to talk about the Handy Boy. Let's get into the weird shit because that's the title of the episode.
Yeah.
The Handy Boy, which is...
Are you saying the Worm Light is not weird? It's called Worm Light.
It's because it's on a bindi, Saturn.
First of all, that's not what a bindi is.
It's on a bindi, so you can bend it to where you need it.
Just because you've gotten used to the idea of a Worm Light doesn't make it less weird.
Please let me talk about the Handy Boy.
Please, let's talk about hand jobs.
It is not the name of a sexual maneuver that I'm aware of.
Handy Climax Boy.
Yeah, Handy Climax Boy. This monstrosity was not only official, but it was very common. Yep. Lots of people had the Handy Boy. And it slots over the entire top half of the original model Game Boy.
Yep.
And it added the following mostly useless functions.
Yep.
A light. A very yellow light that comes in from the side and doesn't really light much up. A raised magnifier over the screen, which... Can we just get it out of the way that magnifying a Game Boy screen does not make it more playable?
No. And doesn't the light only illuminate the magnifier and not the screen, if I remember
I don't know if that's the case in the Handy Boy, but in most Game Boy magnifiers, that is the case.
Yeah.
The light lights up the magnifier.
Right.
It adds fold-out stereo speakers. Marginally functional. I will give them that. And then there's a separate like butt that connects to it, like dangles down, that adds a joystick over the D-pad and a huge weird slanted button covers over the A and B buttons.
Yeah.
And then it adds a strap that you can wear like a purse because it was not fitting in any kind of bag with this gargantuan thing on it.
And the A and B buttons make it look like it's a toggle switch.
Yeah, they're very weird. But I will say this, to its credit, it doesn't have its own batteries. It has metal tabs that slot into the main battery compartment between the contacts, which is that's a neat idea for a Game Boy peripheral because you don't want to have extra batteries for your peripheral, which we'll talk about later.
But it's also draining your battery faster.
This is true. The controller portion, it was separate, so you could use the Handy Boy in the slightly, and I use the word generously, the slightly more useful speakers, light, and magnifier only configuration, which is how you more commonly see it used.
Now, you did mention that this is official. I would like to clarify, this is licensed officially.
Yes, pardon me. This is officially licensed.
By Nintendo. This is made by STD.
Yes, which is the name of STD made the Handy Boy. There were many variations on the Handy Boy. One of them we'll talk about later, but for the most part, they all provided the same combination of not useful features.
I also appreciate the STD, who later went by Interact. That was the name they were known by eventually. Yeah. They also released a power adapter for the Game Boy and for the Handy Boy called the Handy Power.
No, they did not.
Absolutely did.
Let's talk about the mobile Game Boy adapter.
Okay.
This worked with the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and GBA-SP. This was an official Nintendo collaboration with Mobile 21, which was owned by Konami and Nintendo. Mm-hmm. And it connected to your Game Boy. You connected your Game Boy to a mobile phone to use various applications and things. It allowed some Pokemon games to talk to each other, such as Pokemon Crystal and Stadium 2. There was a GBA Silent Hill novel of some sort called Play Novel Silent Hill on one of them.
It's released as a separate game, too.
And you could use the built-in email system to send messages to other mobile Game Boy adapter users.
I didn't realize that Play Novel was compatible with this.
It's in the listed software.
Huh. Neat.
Now, what I love is it says Pokemon Stadium 2, which makes me realize that means you're connecting your phone to this cartridge to your N64 controller to your N64 through the Game Boy adapter. And I can't, and it would be funny if that was the most ridiculous squid of peripherals that Nintendo ever demanded from consumers.
Right.
But it's not, because I own the GameCube, and I know the kind of shit they wanted me to do to it.
Didn't the N64 transfer pack have a link port on it?
I'm not sure.
I know that the Game Boy Player has a link port, but I thought that the N64 transfer pack did too. So maybe you could just plug it into the link port on that.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. That would be useful. Still a weird squid of devices.
Yes.
There's the Play-Yan, which released in Japan in 2005. I believe this is official. The Play-Yan was an MP3 player and MPEG-4 player for the GBA that used an SD card for loading files.
Nice.
It included a small selection of minigames. As far as I know, it was an official Nintendo product, and I kept checking because I was like, there's no fucking way. This is official. And they came out with a later revision for the Game Boy Micro called the Play-Yan Micro that supported more file formats.
Nice.
And it supported MP4 video files. And I'm like, man, who the fuck is wanting, like, it's 2005.
Yeah.
We have affordable, usable MP3 players on the market.
I don't know if affordable was, because it was probably 08, 09 before I was able to afford an MP3 player. They were the little stick ones for like $50 in the 05 range. I feel like there were. It was after 05 before I found one for 50, and it was the little stick one. It was probably like 07, 08 when I got one.
At the very least, you could get a mini disc player.
Who wants a mini disc player in 2005, Justin?
But then, need I remind you, and this is why this peripheral is stupid and it's in the weird peripheral category, is that if you're on the GBA SP, there's no headphone jack.
There is not, no.
To listen to your fucking MP3s.
But they made a Game Boy Micro version of it, Justin.
Yes. Yes, they did. Thank goodness. And you can watch videos on it. Don't you want to watch videos on your Game Boy Micro? The screen is 2 inches.
You remember that they released Shrek and Shark Tale, the entire movies?
Oh, yes,
GBA
I do.
Cartridge?
Yes, I do. I sold so many of those fucking SpongeBob episodes were the ones that sold.
And
those
GBA
moved,
video.
right?
We were able to sell the Pokemon episodes and Rugrats. That's what I could sell.
I want to talk about the Hyperboy. This was made for the original DMG, and it turned the whole system into a little tiny arcade machine, complete with a joystick, screen magnifier.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Mm-hmm. It is the stupidest thing. It's the screen, even when you magnify it, still sucks. And it's this huge thing, and it's just so ugly and dumb, and it barely works. I don't understand. This was the Konami made one. Yeah. And we're going to talk more about these lines of devices very soon.
I want to briefly mention another dumb Konami-made peripheral for the Game Boy Color specifically, and it's the DDR pad. Because Konami released several Dance Dance Revolution GB games for the Game Boy Color, and alongside them they released a teeny tiny thumb DDR pad.
No, they did not.
And it
they did not.
The bottom half of your Game Boy Color, and it's just a teeny tiny DDR pad that you can play DDR with on your Game Boy.
The problem is the Game Boy Color is the only Game Boy that does not have a flat back, so it won't sit flat on the table for the pad.
Well, that's why you have the little adapter. It covers the whole bottom half of your Game Boy.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
It gives you a platform.
Yeah, kind of. Here, I'll send you a picture of it because it's adorable and awesome. I always wanted one. I never got one, but I always wanted one for some reason. I can't imagine that it's functional.
Yeah,
but it is adorable, and I want it.
Oh, it's so ugly.
It's so.
Oh my god. Oh god. What was I naming? The Hyperboy. Yeah. Yes. Arcade turns your Game Boy into an arcade machine. Here's the thing, though. The screen is still the same size, even with the magnifier. And when you're playing an arcade machine, you're sitting up and away from it.
Yeah.
You can't fucking see it.
Now imagine playing DDR on it.
I don't want to. Which brings us to the category of really weird peripherals. Mm-hmm. And I have two listed here. The first one I want to talk about is the Workboy. Now, this did not come out.
True.
This was shown off at CES 1992 and developed by Fabtech Incorporated. It was a little baby keyboard that connected to your Game Boy and turned it into a tiny, shitty PDA.
And I think Video Game Historian did a whole episode about it, if I remember.
I believe so. Yeah. And it just looks like fucking garbage. And it never released because it cost as much as the Game Boy.
Yeah, and there wasn't a huge demand for PDAs at the time. And the people who did have a huge demand for PDAs didn't have a Game Boy laying around.
Right. They were buying PDAs.
Right.
It's just, it was so dumb and ugly. I can't imagine. I just can't. The Satec Booster Boy. Mm-hmm. If the Handy Boy was just too small for you, then they have the Booster Boy. This is a gargantuan shell that encompasses your DMG, the biggest Game Boy.
Right.
And provides all the same features as the Handy Boy, but adds the following: a headphone storage compartment, because there's just enough room, a huge slanted butt on it so you can set your GB on the table.
Yeah.
A compartment in the butt for 2 full original Game Boy cartridges.
Yeah.
And it requires 4 C-cell batteries.
If I remember right, Pablo got one of these recently.
I gave him one that you gave me, but it's just the back. It's missing the front plate.
Weak.
So you put it down in this thing, and it has a whole front plate that covers it. Now, the C-cell batteries also act as a power brick because there's AC adapter pass-through to the Game Boy. But then it uses its own separate and different AC adapter than the Game Boy uses.
Of course.
And it is so unusable and gigantic. It's huge. It's enormous. It looks like an accessibility device for the Game Boy. That's the only thing that I could. And I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out some features on it. I think it was the bottom compartments, the headphone compartment and the cartridge compartment. So I go on YouTube. This is the only place I can find anyone talking about the Satec Booster Boy. And it's a guy that had just bought one, and he's like, oh, it's great. This doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and the AC adapter is weird. But, man, it's great if you want to lay your Game Boy on a table to play it. And I was like, who wants that? Who's out there like, man, the Game Boy's great. I just wish I could lay it on a table and sit 4 feet away from it while I play it. That would just be awesome.
That's why I had a Super Game Boy, so I could sit 4 feet away from it. I do want to mention one more weird peripheral before we get to the just completely dumb stuff.
Yes.
And that is the Singer JN100.
What the fuck is this a sewing machine?
It's a sewing machine. And it was $800.
Oh my God.
And it was a sewing machine that you would plug into your Game Boy Color. And it came with a cartridge that would let you design little patterns, and then the sewing machine would print out your dumb little pixelated Mario pattern.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Oh man, that just sounds so not fun. $800.
I don't know if it came out in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But it's exorbitant, and I don't know who it was sold to. I don't know who would have bought it. I don't know where you would have bought it. I have to say it would have been like in the back of a magazine somewhere if it was even sold outside of Japan. But it's the most bizarre Game Boy accessory I've seen.
Now we move on to the completely dumb peripherals category. First up is the Game Boy Advance steering wheel.
Yeah, you showed me this.
This turd was shit out by Pelican for the GBA. It's a steering...
I'm sorry, there were 3 different sewing machines released for the Game Boy Color. My bad. There are 3 different models of Singer sewing machines for the Game Boy Color. Anyway, go on.
The GBA steering wheel is a steering wheel that sits on a flat surface, and you slot your GBA into the center of it.
Like you do.
So imagine you're sitting in an upright position, holding a wheel, looking forward like you do at a car, driving, but now your entire viewing screen is the center of your steering wheel, and it's an original model only GBA with no backlight.
Perfect. That's what I always wanted.
Now, thankfully, the screen itself does not turn with the wheel. I mean, initially, I thought it did. And astute listeners will realize that the GBA D-pad is digital. Yeah. Which means that turning the wheel just presses the button. There's no range of motion. It's just on or off. It's just a D-pad. So it's functionally useless.
Yeah.
I don't know who this was for.
I can't come up with any reason for that to exist.
It absolutely will make you worse at everything. It's the worst piece of shit I've seen for the Game Boy Advance, and that's saying a lot, man, because there's some dumb shit.
I love the idea it will make you worse at everything. Like the guy buys it, starts playing it. I'm like, I'm bad at sex now.
Oh, no, I can't do my taxes.
I can't do math.
My final one is the Game Boy Magic card.
Yeah.
And the
I remember this.
The Game Boy Magic card allows you to change the color palette of original Game Boy games on the Game Boy Color. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute. The Game Boy Color already does that. For people that don't know, when you boot the Game Boy Color up, you can hold one of several different button combinations to change the color palette.
Yeah.
But this giant Game Shark style lock-on cartridge lets you customize those colors.
Oh, fancy.
Except, unlike the Game Shark, which spits your game downward along the back of your Game Boy, this sticks it straight up out the fucking top. Also, you can play your original Game Boy games in your own custom color palette on the Game Boy Color. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, but Justin, we could already do that. It was called the Super Game Boy. Yes, that's true. But that functionality was already built into the Game Boy Color. Yes, that's also true. But what if it was worse and you paid more money for it? Wouldn't that be awesome?
And what if your accessory that you're using for it was butt ugly?
And made your game susceptible to getting knocked out of your fucking system? It's so stupid. I don't... Who?
Did you ever have the original Game Boy Game Genie? The one?
No, but I've seen that thing. It is bizarre.
It stands way up tall above the Game Boy screen, and the cartridges go in it backwards, so you only see the ass into your cartridge while you're playing.
That one was a weird one.
Yeah.
That was a weird one too. God, there's so much stupid shit.
Yes.
Made for the Game Boy, and I want to say that as far as legacy, this continues with the Switch.
Oh, yeah. There's so many dumb accessories for it.
There are so many dumb Switch accessories, and some of them Nintendo is putting out, like Nintendo-themed micro SD cards. Why do you need to pay extra money for a slower micro SD card that has a superstar on it when it's going to slot into your system and you will never see it ever?
Because Nintendo makes a little bit of money on it. And that's the frustrating part to me about that specifically, is it's made by SanDisk, who also makes non-Nintendo branded SD cards that you can usually find right next to them on the shelf for half the price.
And people are buying them because they're still making them.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many knockoff, shitty Joy-Con, third-party Joy-Con things that's like a controller cradle you slot your Switch into. Right. Oh, it's all I can do to not buy some of these because they're so shitty that I just want to know.
I've also seen a lot of shitty USB controllers for the Switch and for the Xbox now. Started to see some shitty Xbox USB controllers.
Really? Usually Xbox was the one that was kind of exempt from the shitty accessories.
Well, now that they are allowing wired controllers, they are opening the door.
Yeah, it's... Nintendo continues this legacy of both official and unofficial weird, shitty, useless things that you do not need for your Nintendo Switch, but they'll sell them to you.
We call it crapulence.
Yeah, Nintendo. We'd like to award them the 2023 award in crapulence from Retro Warriors. It's never gone away, and I think a lot of it is because the Switch, much like the Game Boy, also suffers from a lot of technical limitations. When it came out, it was dated hardware when it came out.
And also sold a gajillion units like the Game Boy.
Yeah, it creates an entire cottage industry for all kinds of different shit. There are custom-made cases to fit your Switch in its custom-made third-party Joy-Con different configurations out there.
I have a case that fits it with the Split Pad Pro.
The Split Pad Pro, that's a big one, and it's like it is. People have been piggybacking off of the fact that Nintendo releases dated hardware since 1989.
Really before that, because the
really
Famicom itself was dated hardware, and people were releasing
had a
better
lot of weird
controllers with longer cords for the Famicom.
Yeah,
from day one, basically.
Yeah, it's so it's nice to know that some things just never change.
Right?
They're just gonna keep shitting out crap.
Please segue that.
If you like people shitting out crap, then you can go to our Patreon where we shit out tons of crap. There's so...
Last week we called you all sexy. This week we think you like crap.
Yeah, last week you're sexy. This week we want you to consume our crap we've shit out. Please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Retro Warriors. If you go to the show link thing, go to the show notes.
Yeah.
All right, are you there? Okay, great. There's only one link. Click on that, and it'll show you all the stuff we've got.
Click on that one link, and it'll give you more links. Don't get overwhelmed.
They
all are ours.
Slow down. They're in, though. I did order them top to bottom in the order that I want you to click on them. So it's like the very first link is Discord, and then it's like I don't remember. I forget now.
I think Patreon.
Patreon's probably the next one down. Yeah. Rate and review the show on whatever you're on. It does help a lot. We understand that not everyone can give us money, despite possibly really wanting to give us money.
You're probably still sexy, even if you can't give us money.
Yeah, you're all sexy. Only sexy people are allowed to listen to this show. So if you're listening, then you're sexy, obviously.
And we appreciate that.
And we appreciate how
sexy your sexiness with us.
Anyway, we want to thank the following patrons for crapping out some money into our bank accounts, starting with Jammo.
And Mark Schwickendiehoffmeyer.
Little Bunny Fufu 89.
Atari 2600 consultant Marlo 221.
Bobby.
Adam Williams.
Chris Courage.
Platform agnostic.
Shitty Game Pollyanna Win.
And Chris.
Are all the people who we want to award our Patreon exclusive certificate of crapulence to. For just being really awesome individuals.
But wait, there's one more patron that we want to thank for their crapulence.
Yeah.
And it's our producer, Guy.
Oh, my God. Stay tuned after the ending. I always want to say credits. We don't have credits. Everyone you're listening to that worked on the show, stay tuned after the ending theme. And then you can hear Guy talk to us about more crapulent things that he's very excited about. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Thank you for listening. And as always, let us cling together. Hi, welcome to the after party. Guy's here, and he's going to have definitely non-crapulent things to discuss with us.
No pause at all there this time.
Are you sure about that?
Because we just love Guy, and he's great. And his crapulence. Hi, Guy.
Hi, how's it going?
What kind of weird Game Boy shit did you own?
A Game Boy.
Did you ever get a Handy Boy when you were young?
Somebody tried to. Oh, never mind.
I like that you can't even. You're like, how do I do this without it not crossing a line?
Right.
Well, my mom left me in the car at one time. And
oh my God,
this sounds awful. Like, she left me in the car because she was going to a garage sale, right? And the car was just like, or the garage sale was, maybe a house away, right? But
right.
And some guy came and was like trying to open the door to the car.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you almost had a Taken situation.
Yeah. No,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Was Liam Neeson nearby at least to help you?
No. And then I locked the door, and he like motioned to the door lock and was like, open it. I was like, no.
Why would you do that?
No way.
Yeah. And then like mom came back from the garage sale, and I told her about it. She's like, why didn't you honk the horn?
Because when you're a kid, honking the horn is this like forbidden activity.
Right.
That you're like, I almost never even see adults do it.
Right.
Well, I can't honk the horn. This is forbidden for children. It won't work when I do it. Yeah.
That's terrifying.
That is terrifying. Did she not call the police and like file a report? Like, fuck.
No.
No. It was the 90s. Kids got taken all the time. Liam Neeson wasn't there to save them yet. It happened. He was too busy being Darkman.
Anyway, I was going to make a joke about that.
So. I'm glad you didn't, but told the story anyway, so we can make the joke in our heads.
There you go.
And then we
feel
don't
terrible about it.
Yeah, but then we don't have to say it. I like that. I like that course of action. That's good stuff.
Yeah, no. Let's see. What do I got for notes? Viable LOL.
Yes, Saturn. Viable human Chris Saturn.
That's good. I expect that name change to hit Saturday as well.
Yeah, what am I going to be? I'm going to be something fuckface.
Resident fuckface.
Resident fuckface and viable human.
Perfect. Level Ceres or Celis.
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy VI. My thing that I did when I played it when I was a kid was I leveled Celis. Is that her name?
Yeah, Celis.
Yeah, I leveled her. Because then when the world gets destroyed and she's your first party character, everybody else is level matched when you get them back.
True. Yeah. They all try to,
I didn't know that.
And the thing is, if you do the river trick, then everybody else will be a higher level. And when you first recruit Celis, she will be the average of everyone's levels, which Locke is going to bring it down a bit, but it still makes her a much higher level than Locke, which gives you a good starting base point for the second world, even if you don't do any further leveling.
Yeah. No, when I booted it up, I wasn't even looking at the health totals, and Locke attacks and does like 500 damage, and then Terra attacks and does like 4,000 damage. and I was like, what the fuck? And I go and I look at her equipment, and she's got Ultima weapon, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I did some grinding.
Yeah, like when you get them all back at like 99, like they all have their like final attacks and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously overpowered. Like just halfway through the game, you've got all their attacks. Great.
Right.
Nice. How
you
exciting.
Don't have to do all their little side stories. They're just all powered up.
But you still can do their side stories.
Yeah. And then they still act like they learned something.
I don't know if anybody can hear this sound in the background. I'm sure you can't on Discord.
Yeah, I do hear it.
Oh, that's my cat's litter robot. We got a fucking space litter box. We were talking about litter boxes earlier. Yeah.
I've seen your litter box. Your litter box looks like a weird segment from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
You know? I imagine that moment where he's like at the end of the movie, like zooming through time or whatever, and it's like flashing on his face. Like that's what your cat looks like going into the litter box every time. You know, 'cause it's like up some steps and there's laser beams and shit, and it's an orb. It looks like he's getting in a space pod to like save the cat race.
I considered the auto litter boxes, but my cat is so terrified of anything that makes noise that I am worried she would never once use it.
Yeah. Well, you can turn it off.
Right, but even things that have previously made noise, she won't approach. Like she's afraid of
like
the washer and dryer.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's fair.
If you ever want to have a real good... Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you put it like in your extra room, right?
Yeah.
How long does it run? Because it's still running.
Well, it's a slow like cylinder that turns back and forth.
I see. Okay.
If you put it away from her, then like, you know, when she's in your room, you can like run it or whatever.
Right, yeah.
You know.
I like that you just told us you can turn it off, and yet here you are on your segment on the show with it running in the background.
Well, I didn't know my cat took a leak. I'm sorry. I can't get up now, can I? It's on the other side of the room.
One of my favorite things to do casually on the internet a little while back was read Amazon 1-star reviews for automatic litter boxes.
Yes.
Because every one of them are just litter boxes that have had the most catastrophic possible failure that involves smearing shit all over places. And it's fucking great.
That's awesome.
I also like reading 1-star reviews for really legendary books and movies, like 1-star reviews for The Lord of the Rings and The Godfather and, you know, shit like that.
Yeah.
Those are also enjoyable. Nice. Anyway.
Last note, MGS, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I love those games, and I cannot wait.
I'm hoping that I can actually finish MGS3 this time, because I've bounced off it so many times that maybe this new remake will be what pushes me through.
Oh man, MGS4 is the first one that I didn't finish the first time I tried it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never gotten to 4 because I keep wanting to finish 3 first, and everybody tells me that 4 is better and I should just skip 3.
4 is the most MGS game that ever MGS'd. It is unhinged Kojima. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's pretty great.
I think 3 is definitely more fun. Like, it's a more fun game.
I
but
hate 4, the camouflage bit so much.
4 is just fucking bananas.
No, I take that back. 5 is the one I bounced off of. 4 is the one where he starts in a wheelchair visiting a grave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I finished that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what have I been doing? So
yeah,
that was the whole reason I came back this episode.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. In November, I went on my honeymoon.
Stormed the Capitol and you took over the country for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Briefly.
No, I'm not even gonna say that.
I'm not gonna say that. Not gonna trick me.
Nope.
Not today, Satan.
Guy is now the president of Guytopia.
Perfect. That's what I call my new house.
Guytopia.
Yeah.
You need a sign. You get one of those nice wood burned signs. I have a wood burner. I'm gonna make you a Guytopia sign.
Nice.
Ooh, fancy.
Just need to find some wood
for stakes.
Anyway, yeah, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I don't know. Stuff.
I don't know.
Okay, so last year was just such a fucking whirlwind, right? Like we got married. I got engaged in May.
Yep.
Married in July. A reception in October.
Yep.
And then honeymoon in November.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved in the house at the end of November. And then my dog died Christmas Eve.
Poor Wally.
Poor Wally. That's the saddest thing. I was thinking about that today because I was thinking about telling, these stories or whatnot.
Yeah.
Workshopping my radio show, I guess, in the shower you do.
Like you do.
But yeah, no, I miss that dog. He's a really good dog. And he got to live in this house for almost a month. So good. Good for him.
How old was he?
Like 13.
112. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. He was no, he wasn't 12. He was I don't remember, like 11. But we can't. I guess you, Justin, you came over like the day he started sneezing or whatever.
Yeah, I remember I came over and we watched Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Nice.
I'd never seen that movie, and my wife was like,
"Oh man,
you have to see that movie.
You got it. It's so good. Anybody that's not seen Toxic Avenger, lower all your expectations and go watch it. It's a blast.
It is a fun, terrible movie.
And then ignore the rest of Lloyd Kaufman's career, please.
Yeah, please.
Because really, it just is too much.
What about the cartoon?
It was okay. I don't know that Lloyd Kaufman had anything to do with it.
He did not.
Yeah.
Well, he licensed it.
Yeah. Also, the toys.
Yeah.
Toys were pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he started sneezing, and then we're like, hey, I guess it's probably because you've been huffing paint because the contractor's still working on our house.
Oh no.
Yeah, and he's addicted to huffing paint.
Right. No, I thought the dogs had like got their nose in it, and it was like irritating their
right
noses and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, it lasted for a little bit, and then he started like sneezing blood, so we took him to the vet,
no.
and like a day later, they're like, oh yeah, no, it's cancer, and then like 2 days later, it was time for him to go.
Yeah.
And it was all so quick. It was fucking awful.
Right.
That sucks, man.
And then that was Christmas Eve. Well, Christmas Eve.
God damn.
Right. Christmas Eve, I have family over because it's my year to have Christmas Eve with the kids because of our divorce agreement or whatnot.
Yeah.
And every time we have Christmas Eve with me and the kids, I invite their stepsister, their mom and stepmom, and not stepdad. I guess it's their stepsister's dad, right? So basically, the step siblings and their parents.
Right.
Yeah.
And this year, I also invited their grandmother on the step side.
Yeah.
And so it was a really fun time. Like I had a good time and made ham for everybody, and it was a nice family time. Nice. But like we took this family picture and like Sasha's in it, but like for me it's always going to be the picture without Wally.
Oh.
That's
poor
rough.
Wally.
It sucks.
Well, if it gives you any solace at all, Wally didn't know what the fuck Christmas was.
Well, I mean, that's
so
true.
he probably didn't give a shit.
Right. Well, and we always joke like about like Wally's ghost not being like happy about what Sasha's doing or whatever.
Right.
And like anytime there's a weird sound, it's like that's probably Wally's ghost. Anytime something weird happens with electronics, it's Dad's ghost. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me today that maybe Dad's ghost and Wally's ghost are like friends.
Yeah.
Maybe Wally mellowed Dad out in the afterlife, and they're just like palling around, hanging out.
Yeah, that's a full Casper situation you got going on there.
Yeah, that's great. Just got to invent the machine that brings them back to life, I guess.
Oh no, I got sad again. Oh no. It's kind of getting lighthearted, and then now it's sad.
You just need to get Bill Pullman involved.
I was helping Andrew work on a script he was writing, and there was a scene where someone dies and comes back. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a lighthearted scene, but the character was like, I was with my dad again.
Oh, no.
I was like, that's the darkest fucking thing I've ever read, Andrew.
Oh,
he was like, sorry.
That's good.
I was with my dad again. That's fucking dark.
Yeah. But like I said, the contractor was still working on the house when we moved in, and it was like 80% done when it moved in. Like it was done enough that it passed the occupancy inspection.
Yeah, you're legally allowed to live in it.
Right, but they're like with the understanding that if something happens, your insurance may or may not pay for it. Right?
Yeah, you can now not live in it.
Right. So we got past that phase and have the full thing now. But Like we're in a spot now where like the only thing that's left to do on the inside is like some trim work and like it's just a bunch of little shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've been living in this house for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where like we finally gotten to a point that it's like, okay, we're just going to start doing stuff. So like Kristen started like painting walls and putting up pictures and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I pulled my mic out of storage because right now, like the studio that we built, like part of the new house is we added a recording studio. And I'm excited to get into it, but you know, if finishing the house is going to take this long, then I'm going to start living my life again. Right.
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 So I found a way to, you know, get this like basically the mic and cable and mic stand are all just like one little assembly. And I just carry that to the other room when I'm done and store all the other shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been it really.
Nice.
That's good, man.
Trying not to get laid off and
isn't everyone?
Everyone. Yeah. It's like,
It's not so bad.
For a while,
trying not to get laid off.
For a while, I was confident in my position, right? And then, like, all my friends started getting laid off. I was like, well, I'm just going to keep my head down, do my work. Like, an old colleague of mine called me the other day, and he was like, hey, man, the reason I called was, weren't you talking about starting a union for, like, workers in our industry? I was like, not at this point.
No, that wasn't me. That was someone else.
Get away from me.
Right.
I'm only here to toe the company line. Please don't let me off.
Right.
Yeah. We because we're all going through layoffs at my office right now. I've got a couple more months left, and when they announced our layoffs, I started getting all these messages from people from our other locations. They're like, "Oh, sorry to hear what you guys are going through. You know, let us know if there's anything we can do to help." And over the last few weeks, most of those people have been laid off. Only they were laid off instantly, unlike me. So I got their messages saying that they felt bad for me, and now they are gone first. So
Yikes.
Well, we're way over on time.
Oh,
great.
But Guy, we're glad. Good.
The only other thing I've been doing is going to hockey class, but I'll talk about that when it's over.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're glad to have you back on the show.
Yeah. Yeah,
I was going to say just in general, but you've not gone anywhere in the rest of our lives.
Yeah, this is
just on the show. Anyway, Guy, thanks for being on. Thanks for producing the show, and thanks everyone for listening to the stuff. We really need to come up with a proper outro for this portion of the show because it's just kind of weird. Anyway, pretty high there. Anyway, thanks for listening. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.